I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Got a great program, 3 segments, 3 interesting conversations. You're going to enjoy it. Before I get into my first guest, I want to invite you to support this program, support the Conversation with Al McFarlane. How do you do that? Go to YouTube Insight News and subscribe. Also, like and share. We're streaming this program across several platforms, the YouTube channel for our company, Insight News, but also the YouTube channel for the Black Press of America, Black Press USA. You may be connecting with us from anywhere around the country or around the world through their platform. We're streaming to several Facebook platforms and also to Twitter and LinkedIn. However we connect with you, we value the connection. We value the relationship. We want to grow it, and we're asking you to help us grow it. How do you do that? Be a subscriber. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a second of your time, but it gives you notice whenever we're going live with our programs, and we want to feel like we're building community together, one conversation at a time. So go to YouTube, Insight News, and subscribe, like, and share. Well, today I want to begin with an interview with Sarah Drake and Aaron Begneski. She'll correct me if I'm saying the name wrong. I said it right before the show. But Aaron and Sarah, thank you both for being here. Sarah is an award-winning ecologist, an author, illustrator, and a teaching artist in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. She works on human rights and social justice topics. She's done that for a couple of decades, and that work inspires her artistic creations. And this calling brought her to Burkina Faso in Africa in 2011. She and women and children in the village is called Tiabele, and again, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, in Burkina Faso, met and created a collaboration to raise money for projects that would lead to improved health, improved education, and sustainable economics for that community. She herself survived an illness that at that time it killed over 25,000 children who were under the age of 5 years old in that country. But it's because she had access to health care that the locals didn't. This compelled Sarah to use her artwork as an education tool and a fundraiser. When she returned to the United States, she created a project called Arts in Action, and has worked as a single mom and living room floor of her one-bedroom apartment because to create this organization, because existing organizations were not working in that region and they weren't willing to either. Well, enter Aaron Begneski. She's had a fulfilling career in consulting and at a Fortune 6 health insurance company. She embarked on a transformative journey in 2016. She volunteered in Zambia for 6 weeks. She witnessed the untapped potential of students who were lacking proper guidance. This experience led her to join Health Partners in their Uganda field office, where she found her true calling. She joined the Rotary Club of Mbarara in Uganda, and she focused on enhancing the quality of education in under-resourced primary schools. So currently, she serves as a volunteer executive director of Africa Strong, and that group collaborates with local partners in southwestern Uganda to improve the quality of education. Sarah, Aaron, thank you for being here. Kudos to both of you for your interest, your intensity, and the work that you have done. Take a minute first, Sarah, and tell me more about you and your passion as an artist.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, I'm the mom to a biracial daughter that I raised on my own, and being in central Minnesota, art was a way to help her learn about some of her heritage. And so going to dances and art and sharing food was ways for her to learn about the African continent. And so that then just really inspired me creating art with her to help her learn about her heritage. And that then seeing that a lot of people, it was hard to have conversations with, especially white folks, around racism and privilege. But I found that art was a tool that allowed us to start have some of those difficult conversations. So between those two things, that's what really grew the artist in me.
Aaron, same question. Talk about your story and how you connected to do this collaborative work.
I really started on the journey, as you shared, when I could no longer make a connection with my career in adding value and finding a greater purpose in the work that I was doing. And that led me to volunteer teaching in Zambia, and knowing I always wanted to do something in education, but didn't want to teach, and never really taking the time to explore what that could be. And so through my time in Zambia and Uganda, really figured out that I could do something and have an impact without teaching. And that led me to, over the years, doing work with Africa Strong, and then coming back and meeting Sarah and the 5 other women who were part of our collaborative, and discovering how much work we could do not only as individuals, but together.
And so how did that gel? How did 7 Minnesota women end up collaborating and coming together to deliver impact and service to a community across the world?
When you're a volunteer running a nonprofit, and as for me, an operator, you're mainly working with friend and family board and doing your best, and over time networking, and get to know and hear stories of others, and learn that there's opportunities where you can add value and learn from each other and support one another. So about a year ago, I had been given an opportunity to share my story, and part of the message was about uplifting other women. And so shortly after that, made a couple phone calls to the women, 7 of us that ended up being part of the collaborative, and we got together for coffee. We had a couple conversations and realized not only were there stories we could share and learn from each other, and networks that we could share, and grant research that as we were doing it that we could share with one another, but that there was more. By really working together and collaborating, we could open doors that individually we couldn't open. And that's really what led to the collaboration. And what we have been saying is that this is just a start, and we are building on something that's unique and special, and that this is opening doors that none of us ever thought possible.
Describe your project, Sarah, Aaron. Just how's the entire big picture look? How does it work? What's kind of the deliverable that you are bringing to community, to society, to that town?
So what we noticed is, even though we operate in different countries and maybe our, mission and vision statements are different, and people would be like, oh, well, what do you have in common? We're women here in Minnesota. And when we looked at what is our common thread through all of what we're doing, and it was literacy and access to education. And because no matter what you're doing in life, being able to read just enhances your opportunities, the opportunities to employment, and increasing, your economic status, and just all of those things. Some of us are building classrooms, and some of us are working on access to water so girls don't have to haul it, teacher development, whatever the area is that we're working on. Literacy was that piece that united all of us. So while some see it as we're doing different things, when we look at it, we see we're all doing something to help make a difference in the life of children and adults across the world. And so being able to help people get access to books, education, being able to read, that's just enhancing everybody's life. And it looks like Aaron wants to add something.
Aaron, go ahead.
I think Sarah hit on it. And I think one of the things I've been saying lately is that by 2035, more of the workforce will come from Africa than the rest of the world combined. And literacy is a foundation to a workforce, and a productive workforce. And I think literacy, again, is just at the heart of that. And that's where our passions all met. And whether it's health related or again, I think the other emphasis is keeping a focus on girls and keeping girls in school. And it's not a simple answer. And again, the thread that keeps it all there is literacy.
So you got a fundraiser coming up?
It just happened on Friday.
Okay.
Not all funds and reports are done, but I can confidently say roughly after expenses, we have $13,000 some dollars that was raised. And because this was the first time, we all have our own budgets and things that we were working towards doing. And so I can speak to me, for example, with the share of the funds that we'll receive, we'll be able to sponsor the 30 girls that we sponsor in Chibale. And so this is our, I want to say 5th or 6th year. We have 3 groups of girls that we've been adding to. And so, you know, it's something that up until Friday, I had been struggling really hard. As of Friday, I told them, like, I don't have the money to sponsor the girls. Like, it's just been such a rough year for fundraising. And so being able to come together with the support of the other women, like, it's taking a minute to like be frustrated and like, but then it's like, okay, here's my strength. There's your strength. Like, let's work together and do this. And now I'm like, look at what we did. We came together about literacy, and now we have 30 girls that get to continue their education. And so that's just my organization. You know, others are, I'll let Erin share hers, but, you know, some of them are working at building classrooms. Some are working on disability awareness. And so making sure teachers and folks have curriculum on being inclusive and things like that. And so, yeah, it's just a great thing that we're in coming together. I'm able to do something that I was struggling to do on my own.
Erin, add to that.
Yeah. And I think one thing that Sarah highlighted is just continuing to learn from one another. Our project is different. We're trying to raise about $25,000 to ship a container of books from Books for Africa to Uganda. It includes also buying specific fabric to include with the books and the shipment so that we can start income generating projects at the schools we work with in southwestern Uganda to keep girls in school. And so they'll make reusable menstruation kits and sell them in the community. It will bring money into the schools to help them do some of their own projects and make it more sustainable. And so it's a model that we've been studying to try to get more innovative and build more sustainable solutions. And so it's one of many projects that we're looking at launching in the next couple of years with funds. In addition to the books and that, we're looking at buying the container to stay at a vocational school that will become a microclinic. And so that will help with some testing that is very costly for the school to help keep the women and girls in the school and continuing to build the skills. And so, well, it's a start at the funds that we're trying to raise. We're continuing to raise funds. And part of what Sarah and I've talked about and others is that this is something that is new for us that we're embarking on, and potentially a model that others can follow, and vice versa. There's projects others are doing that we hope to learn from as well. And so that's, again, all part of the benefit of the collaboration.
Let's tell people how they can support and donate, either financially or if there are other ways they can contribute or get involved. First of all, if someone wants to send money to your initiative, how do they do that?
So herArtsInAction.org. And then we have in our shop area where if you go in and donate, you can specifically select that it's for life. Before the event, it was easy through the tickets and all of that. But we're doing that for now. And if people don't have funds, volunteering at events, being board members, something that's free and easy is sharing our information. So whether it's on social media, emails, WhatsApp groups, all of that, like so many people, I think, take for granted that that's really vital, is like helping get the word out about us to people that we don't know. And so that's a free, easy thing to do, is just sharing out the information. Many of us do speaking. Some of us are authors. I'm an artist, like inviting us into your spaces to talk about what we're doing. And again, that just gets the word out more, and those can be fundraising opportunities. I don't know. Do you have more ideas, Erin, than that?
No,
Well,
I think
talk about Nanu's Promise. That's a
Yeah.
3-book series.
Yeah. So I'll duck my head a little bit. Those are my books back there. So these are about my work in Burkina Faso. And in our group, Leslie and Rosemond are also authors. And for me, it was difficult getting people in Minnesota to understand why they should care about people in Burkina Faso. And I found if I could have a conversation, then they would start to get it. And I was like, well, I can't talk to everybody. So how can I make more of an impact? And that's where I came up with the idea to do the books. And so they're all based in truth. They're kind of my experiences and experiences of the women and girls in the village into 1 or 2 characters. And then learning about, access to water and sanitation. One of the books, she gets to go to school, and you get to learn all about the art history and culture. And so it's a way to get to know Burkina Faso. It's I like the tie of you buying a book and reading here helps sponsor a girl be able to go to school there, and getting people thinking about, that reciprocity and working together and empathy and all of that just through a book.
When we invited you guys on to talk, we asked you to send us an inspirational quote. And I love the one that you sent. Maybe, Erin, you can read that and tell us what it means to you all. Or do you have it? I can read it too.
Yes, I do now. When spiders unite, they can tie down a lion. I think it was shared with us early in conversations as we were out talking about our work, and it resonated with us. And I think it just really spoke to us in regards to working together and collaborating does have its benefits. I know when we first talked about this with some people, the question was, well, what about your major sponsors and major donors, and dividing those funds? And that just never crossed our mind, because we believe that new doors and bigger doors will open, and that we can have a bigger impact by working together.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. Continued success in your work. It's important work. And let's hope that people learn about it and engage in ways that support the solutions you're bringing in the lives of children and girls in particular. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Let me continue with the second part of our program today, bringing in a friend and elder leader in community, Braxton Halsey. Braxton is I think, change agent. He's entrepreneurial, and he's also worked in the corporate arena, like working at General Mills and the Nielsen Company. His fortes include management skill and project management, sales and business development, strategy, business insights, finance, consulting. He's got a record of growth and expansion for the projects he's led and undertaken. And presently he's leading the important work over at Walker West Music Academy. That's an organization that does provide transformative leadership and vision and direction. And he's leading the administration of that project on its way to fulfill its mission. He also has done a lot of important research work for companies like PepsiCo and Darden. Braxton, brother, good to see you again. How are you? And welcome back to the conversation.
Oh, it's good to be back, Al. I know we talked a couple of months ago, and I was looking forward to reconnecting again. So I'm glad we were able to do that.
Well, the big news is that you've got a recent $4 million gift from the Pat and Gary Sauer organization, and that is going to help you on your work of transformation. Talk about that, if you would.
Yes, that was definitely a transformational gift. And it kind of came out of nowhere. But I later found out that Michael Wright of the Golden Times had been talking to Pat Sauer and had mentioned Walker West to Pat. And so probably about a month and a half ago when they came over for a site visit, it was great. And then
were you expecting them to come with a grant?
No, I was not expecting that at all. And I actually went to drop my son off at college in Chicago. And while I was there, I got a note that, oh, well, would you accept $3 million? And I said, oh, of course I would. And then when I got back, I think Pat called me and said, well, no, we decided to make it $4 million. And I said, okay, all right. But I think it's Pat and Gary, and it came from their own personal wealth, not their foundation. But they really care about the Rondo community, and she really, especially Pat, really wants to see what can be done to uplift and make the community vibrant, through a number of different vehicles, including the arts. And so, just really exciting.
So this goes into your renovation of the Wilder property, right?
Or yeah, the Wilder, the former Wilder property. Right now it's owned by Model Cities and List until we pay them back. But yeah, this $4 million was not only just transformational in terms of just the capital project. It just meant that we could move forward on the project while we wait for some things to happen at the state. To get their $4.1 million as well. And so it just allows us to just, I think the way we're timing it now, by the end of the year, we'll purchase the building and pay Model Cities and List back. And then we start construction in January. And then from January through August, the remodel construction will go on. And then hopefully the next school year will be moving in to the new facility, remodeled, state-of-the-art educational facility with all of the acoustic treatments. And maybe by that time, we'll be done with our 200 seating capacity performance hall with state-of-the-art as well.
That's exciting. Take a minute and give us something about the history of Walker West. Why is it so special? It's really a jewel, and its story is a great story, but let me ask you to share it.
Yes. 1988, Reverend Walker and Grant West started the school. And a lot of folks don't realize how why that date was so important. But in 1988, it was the start of the crack cocaine epidemic in the Twin Cities, and it actually started in Rondo neighborhood. And so there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of killing, a lot of drug bust and things of that sort. And these two gentlemen literally decided to open the schools to pull the kids off the street and get them into music. As a way of doing something productive, and then also as a way of putting some culture into an area that had lost its kind of cultural and social boom with the Interstate 94 tearing apart the neighborhood. So yeah, all of that was, I think just starting from that, from that baseline. Is how Walker West was started, and that type of vibe and that type of love for community has grown for over 35 years. And so, Walker West is truly an institution. throughout the Twin Cities, and definitely an institution in the Rondo neighborhood.
Well, when people think about music education, they generally think about, 4, 5, 10, 15-year-olds, getting instruction after school or on weekends. But you all are that plus a gazillion times more than that. You've got a phenomenally broad range of ways to engage not only young people, but every level in our community. Talk about the spectrum of
Yes.
training and engagement that you all provide, and how that connects to a mission of healing.
Definitely. In 2019, we started a strategic plan. And Al, within that strategic plan, one of the key tenets of that strategic plan is that music is healing for everyone, not just school-age kids. And so we started an early childhood music program initially with McPhail, so that we could have the babies and the infants begin to become accustomed to instruments and singing and music and dance and play. And a lot of times people don't realize that music has a lot of neural impact. And so for the babies, the early childhood music program is great at brain development and impulse control, and it gets the children ready for kindergarten. And a major study done by McPhail and the University of Pennsylvania really lays that out very clearly. And then on the flip side, we have a dementia-friendly choir called the Amazing Grace Chorus, and they are truly amazing.
Wow. And
you can really see the power of music just when you watch the participants come in. They do their exercise, they do their breathing, and then they start dancing and singing. And it's like, a switch turns on. And so we have really wanted to make sure that we cover all ages. And then we have for our teenagers, we have a digital music production program because a lot of Black people are not sound engineers and behind the scenes on the music scene, but they're good paying jobs. And they're jobs that everyone should have the opportunity to do. We actually are starting a new opportunity with Ujamaa Place, so that we can get some of the incarcerated men coming out, some training around digital music production. So when we say community, we say community. That means everyone. And it's almost like Mary Kay Boyd say, everybody's in. And so that's been our philosophy. Everybody's in. And then the other thing that I've come to realize is that people benefit not only by learning music, they benefit by listening to music, and by providing the joy of music through concerts or through recitals or whatever. And so as we go on into our next strategic plan, we're looking at the next iteration of the strategic plan. We're going to our core activity will still be education, but we're going to have probably maybe 30% of our activities will revolve around performance. We'll have a state-of-the-art performance hall, and we'll be doing more performances. There's a possibility that we're going to pick up the Selby Avenue Jazz Fest. We're negotiating that with Michael right now. So, we're really going to put a stake in the ground on not only education, but performance as well.
Are you a musician, Braxton? Do you play?
Yes, but I wouldn't call myself a musician. I'll call myself a student because these guys are so great around here.
What do you play?
I play piano, organ, and then I dabbled in some saxophone back in the day, but I haven't touched one in a while.
Okay. Well, I dabble in saxophone, and what I've thought about, haven't acted on it yet, is signing up for remote instruction.
Definitely sign up today. Well, I'll call Miss Marie.
And I figure as I'm moving into trying to create more space in my schedule, one of the things that I want to do is pay attention to the music that I love so much. I'm an avid listener, an appreciator and lover of music and the creativity that it represents and that it inspires and that it reveals. And, as you were talking, I raised the question about the healing mission. You talked about how individuals' lives, are touched, and the spark that you see in individuals. I'm saying and suggesting that as an institution, that same spark occurs in community. So what happens at the micro individual level is happening at the macro level with the force and the power of the creative presence of Walker West. I think what you're doing is great, and just continued success with it. But let me ask you about, again, I mentioned some of your training and your credentials, and I'm fascinated that you have this corporate and professional high level training and applications in your career, but now you've brought all that to the service of community. Take a minute and walk me back about through your development. Braxton as a kindergartner, as a lower school and middle school, high school student in college. What was life looking like for you in your personal development?
Yeah, well, when I was in second grade, I was a DNF student, and they talked to my mom and they said, he really didn't get the concepts and didn't get what he needed to learn, and you should hold him back. And she did. But she enrolled me in piano, and I tell people all the time, my testimony is that I went from D's and F's to A's in 1 year, and I graduated from college on the dean's list. So I attributed all of that to, I guess, good parenting, but definitely music. And I tell people, learning music is like going to the gym. Except for it's a brain workout, and we need to work out our brain. You look at the left frontal lobe, and it's really focused on the analytics and the syncopation. And then music is a language. So the right frontal lobe focuses on the language and the creative skills. And you do that 2 to 3 times a week. Your brain just starts clicking. And so for me, I just felt that music was great at helping me with math. It was great at helping me with reading, because music is, for those people who say, well, the only thing that needs to be in school is reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I say, music is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Maybe more fun than a calculus equation. And so I'm a true believer that teaching music changes lives, because it did that for me.
That's amazing. And so I've always held that musicians are mathematicians.
Yeah, they are. Yep,
and because it's all about time and signature and recognizing patterns and creating patterns,
right,
and organizing something out of what could be considered chaos and bringing it into a form and fashion of beauty. So that's awesome. Well, listen, what can people do to support you? They can enroll, they can donate, they can volunteer. How can people get involved in supporting the mission at Walker West?
Well, I'm glad that I have this platform today, because we actually want more Black students. It's, when Walker West started in 1988, we had 100% African American students. As of today, it's 41%.
Wow.
And so we're trying to at least get over 50%, because again, when I look at that whole academic success story, and we know that we have this large achievement gap between Black students and white students in Minnesota, the second largest in the country. Music is the tool for closing that gap. And so definitely when we look at our strategic audiences, getting more Black students is very important to us. Getting more low-income students is very important to us. Getting students that even live in the immediate neighborhood, those are kind of the targets. I don't like to call them targets, but those are the audiences that we're looking for to really bring the healing power of music. Right now, we are deploying our instructors into schools that have 70% BIPOC populations during the day, because we believe that music should be taught during the day as a school time curriculum and not in after school programs. I mean, we can do after school programs, but we realize that they're more effective if they're done during the day, because the student takes it seriously, and the teachers take it seriously, and the institution takes it seriously. And it's, we find it to be more beneficial. And so we have deployed our faculty to several schools within the Twin Cities, and we actually are providing consulting and providing a residency in St. Cloud, because their student demographics have totally changed from Caucasians to Somalis and African Americans, and they don't necessarily like their music and their choral traditions. And so we're in St. Cloud showing them the Walker West way.
Awesome, awesome. So you got an event coming up too, fundraising
Yes.
event?
We are going to be at the Dakota on October 30th. And it's going to be a great time. I'm going to call it an enchanting night of music, because our students are just straight up awesome in our youth jazz ensemble, but then our faculty is even more awesome. And so there's going to be performances between students and faculties. And, you know, with the Pat and Gary Sauer gift, the brick and mortar part of the campaign is, you know, we see that one, we see us coming to a completion on that probably within the next several months. And the thing that I'm really, really excited about is that, yes, you know, the brick and mortar and the building is tangible, but now we move to the intangible stuff. The intangible stuff is, yes, okay, let's expand programs, let's serve more people. And then let's have, you know, a larger staff to support the programming. So, you know, I'm not the accountant, the CEO, and the HR person and the fundraiser. So, so we're trying to really scale up to make sure that we can have the bodies and the staffing to support the growth. And we've grown significantly. When I started at Walker West, we had $450,000 budget. Today, we'll probably hit this end of the year, we'll probably hit $2 million. So we've grown phenomenally. And so we need the resources to support the growth.
Brother, thank you so much for being here. Brother Braxton Halsey, Walker West Music Academy, continued success, and look for me to be signing up sooner, hopefully than later, as a student on a tenor saxophone. I'd love to do that.
Oh, yeah. You kind of got that Kirk Whalum look too.
You think so? Alrighty. Listen, thanks so much. We'll talk to you later, okay?
All right. Take care.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll continue with another conversation around entrepreneurism and building community. It's going to be a great conversation. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. FindHelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit FindHelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at FindHelp.org. If you need help starting anew, FindHelp.org is the site for you. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I continue. My next guest is a brother, Denetrick Powers. He's a curator of space and human experiences. He leverages his expertise in art and modern culture patterns with a background in urban planning to develop creative programming solutions for public and private clients. He's one of the principals over at NEOO Partners. That's NEOO Partners. And pleased to have him here to talk about his work, the work of the company, and the company's vision for building community. Brother Powers, good afternoon. Welcome to the conversation. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm well. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
You did. Yep. Denetrick.
Okay, great. Thank you then. So good to see you. You know, I know some of the members of your team. You guys have a blazingly wonderful reputation already. And you are I would say a relatively young company, or a company of young people, but you are knocking them out of the ballpark. Talk about your company and the kinds of things that people are knowing you for here in Twin Cities.
Yeah, for sure. So we started NEOO Partners in December of 2018, seeing an opportunity to serve Black and Brown entrepreneurs, Black and brown led community-based organizations, who have kind of place-based missions, and who need not just expertise around commercial real estate and urban planning, but also need somebody to walk with them throughout the process, help make that process, which can be very nuanced and complicated. When I say process, I'm talking about the commercial real estate development process, as well as urban planning, helps to simplify that process. But also someone who understands the risks that a lot of these leaders and entrepreneurs are taking. A lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with, they don't have the same type of capital, financial capital as, their white counterparts may have starting out, or they don't have, strong friends and family networks who also have financial capital, for their projects. And so a lot of the times, they're leveraging whatever savings that they have, as well as all of the social capital that they have. So it's really important for them to get it right the first time, which was another thing that drove us to start the company, is just recognizing that, for Black families, for Black entrepreneurs, history has shown that oftentimes we only have one opportunity to really take advantage of, the resources, opportunities that, that come about.
I'm going to ask you to go deep on that over the course of the conversation. I think it's a very important topic. But talk about the formation, how you guys formed the company, what brought you together. Did you know each other already? What was the basis for deciding that there was both an opportunity and that you all were a fit for each other in pursuit of the opportunity?
Yeah, so it started back in 2016, me and D'Angelo's relationship. He was doing community engagement for a real estate project he was working on for the Regional Acceleration Center right there on Penn and Plymouth. And I was working at the neighborhood association doing community organizing. I had just got accepted to grad school and was just spilling all of these ideas to him about, affordable housing, affordable student housing. And what really stood out to me is that, like, he didn't put down any of the ideas that I had, or even told me I was wrong, even though I could have been wrong. I think he just seen that I was curious and passionate about, the topic, and offered an internship to me. And so I interned with them in 2017, interned with him at Thor Companies for a year as a part of the commercial real estate team. And then in December 2018, we identified an opportunity to, work with a lot of clients that needed just that, kind of hands-on service work. I always told D'Angelo, so I was like, hey, I'm working here because of you. I'm a big believer in relationships and taking care of your relationships. My relationships have served me very well, even to where I am today. And so I just said to him, hey, if you have, once you leave, I'm leaving as well. And so he kind of had the initial idea of starting the company, and then recognizing my, background in arts and culture placemaking and community organizing, and now having, experience doing, urban planning and commercial real estate, seeing it as an opportunity to not just start a real estate company, but also, add on the urban planning and community engagement work, which I currently lead.
So what does art and community placemaking mean? Unpack that for me.
So art and creative placemaking is a common term in the urban planning and economic development fields, essentially leveraging arts and creativity to brand geography, brand a place. That geography could be a block, it could be an intersection, it could be, an entire campus of sorts. And so essentially it's just, it includes public art. It includes the type of programming that happens in public spaces, such as, plazas, kind of green spaces, parks. And so combining all of those things in order to make a name and make a geography attractive. I would say over the last few years, A lot of communities have went away from, creative placemaking to placekeeping, recognizing that there's already existing arts and creativity that's happening in those areas. And so not wanting to, what I will call, gentrify kind of where they're already living, just identified, hey, like we want to keep this place. We don't want to we're not making anything new.
Sure. Yeah, going to improve it. Your background, you from Minnesota? You Twin Cities person? Where are you from?
I am. I'm born and raised. Both sides of my grandma and grandpa's family have been in Minnesota for a few generations now, 3 or 4 generations. My mom's generation, as well my grandparents were raised in Rondo, between Rondo and the east side of St. Paul. But me and my siblings and some of my cousins my age, or my generation, millennials and younger, were raised in Minneapolis. And so I spent most of my life in North Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. And so what does it mean to you as a person born here to both see how communities evolve, how they change, what stresses, what pressures there are, both positive and negative, and then what sense does it give to you with your professional training and your intent to be a steward of the health and wellness, health and well-being, and of the creative capability of a community that too often, from my point of view, has been intentionally ignored or pushed to the margin in deference to other people's agenda. I'm kind of talking around the topic on one level, but let me ask you to respond to that. What do you think?
I would say, growing up, though most of my life experience has been in the Twin Cities, I did have the opportunity growing up to live in many of the surrounding suburbs, as well as kind of Southeast Minnesota, Rochester, Mankato, and seeing. So because of that lived experience, I got to see what different communities looked like physically, as well as the people that were there. I've seen over the years how a lot of those communities have changed, with growing immigrant communities, growing Black communities in some of those suburbs as well. When I got into community organizing in 2014, right after undergrad, honestly, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was looking for a job. I was a college student coming out of undergrad and just needed some work until I figured out what I wanted to do next. When I got into community organizing and started building, deeper relationships with the folks that lived in my neighborhood, as well as meeting other people that I probably never would have spoken to or even had met. But now I'm meeting them through, different meetings on topics that they're interested in. One of the first things that I noticed is that, one, the urban planning is just a very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts in urban planning. There's a lot of moving parts in real estate that everybody's not aware of. And even when you come to a meeting as a stakeholder, you're only getting one part of all of those moving pieces. And so what stood out to me was that people couldn't fully engage because they didn't really understand how they fit into the process. They couldn't envision themselves as a part of the projects. A lot of times because the examples that they've seen before led to the gentrification of the neighborhoods that they lived in. And so anytime, a new apartment building, a new commercial building, is being planned or developed, even, a new plan for a neighborhood, a lot of times there's assumptions that, neighborhood is going to change. It's going to be too expensive for me to live here, for me to work here. So that was something that stood out to me, was like, people just didn't see themselves. They couldn't see themselves, visualize themselves as a part of those plans and projects. The other thing that stood out to me personally, I've always had an interest in architecture. I've always had an interest in cities. I remember as early as 5, 6 years old wanting to build cities. I didn't know what that looked like then. But then when I got into meetings with, city planners and the Metropolitan Council and developers, I started seeing how the conversations weren't focused just on the present. The conversations were taking present information, past information, but thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead. And so I got frustrated feeling like we were always being reactive to what was coming up. Frustrated, like we were chasing a train that was already going. And for me, if I feel this frustration, I'm sure other people feel the same frustration. Not knowing what's actually or coming into a conversation that's already been fully baked, and you're coming there just to add, the chives or whatever the other toppings are onto it. And so for me, the work became important just to give people an opportunity and to support people's capacity and being able to fully engage in projects, recognizing that people did have ideas, people did understand where they lived, they understand the social relationships. A lot of the community stakeholders that we engage with, they understand the social service system very well. When you're talking about childcare, when you're talking about healthcare, school, as a consultant, you might get stuck in a conversation or discussion that's very high level, but you don't really understand the day-to-day interactions of people that have to go through those systems, and how it actually impacts how they think, how they feel, all the things get into, how it impacts their overall health, not just what they're putting into their body, but, recognizing that, emotions and mental capacity play a big part in, people's overall health as well.
It sounds like you believe that we can teach ourselves to think differently and do differently, that you have provided an analysis of the problems, the things that create doubt and misstep and that maintain lack of opportunity or lack of engagement. But you've described those as not projects or problems that are intractable, but ones that can be looked at, can be named and addressed and fixed. And so my question still builds on the first question. What do you see? How do you see yourself, you and your team, DeAngelos and your company, and then the cohort, your millennial group? How do you see impacting not only Twin Cities, but the culture? What's your dream, your vision, and what inspires you both in history but also in the future?
So I'll start with NEOO, just like the definition of our company name, which is a short form of ananeo, which is a Greek biblical term for renewing of the mind. Renewed in the, image or spirit of God. DeAngelos, being a man of faith, very involved in his church at a leadership level. Me being a man of faith as well. I think that's where we clicked. Like me and him clicked on a spiritual level, kind of a spiritual understanding of how people needed to be cared for during these processes. That was the first piece. For me, I've always been somebody that challenged the status quo. I've always been a person since a kid with a lot of questions, more questions that I have answers, which has been a benefit. Even if I have very little information, about a topic or a subject, I know how to ask the right questions to get where I'm going, which I think is a big part of the work that we do is asking the right questions of our clients, asking the right questions of stakeholders, in order to get at the root issues, and whether that's being economic development, why an entrepreneur may be pursuing a new project. I think. Sorry, you had a big question, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, go anywhere you want to with it. You just.
I think so. We have to, going back to ananeo or NEOO, renew our minds. nobody knew that COVID was going to happen in 2020. Like nobody knew that, at least not here. At least no, who knows? Somebody in a lab could have known that COVID was going to happen. But what we've seen from COVID is that we've had to rethink how we approach our work. You have to rethink how you approach your policies for working. Rethink how you engage with students. Rethink how you engage with consumers, which I think millennials. We've always been preparing for that because we've been noticing that the ways in which the world operated before weren't sustainable. A lot of it, built on what I would call machismo is a word that was commonly used when I was in Mexico City earlier this year.
Sure.
But just kind of like paternalistic, approaches to the world. Paternalistic in the sense of the government deciding what's best for everybody. These very kind of siloed leadership decisions that often happen, in places of business where now you have to, everybody needs to be informed about what's happening. And you get the best results by including as many voices and diverse perspectives as possible in order to develop the solution.
That's awesome. What do you, if you, in your mind's eye, look to the future, what will you and NEOO have created that is a legacy work? That's number one. And what will your generation have created that is legacy work for humanity itself?
Mm-hmm. I think that, I think the first thing is that there's not a lot of Black planners in the industry. If I'm not mistaken, I think Black planners make up less than 3% of all planners, in the U.S. at least. So I think the first part of our legacy, is creating a place where Black planners, exist, and it exists amongst each other. So we are the largest, Black urban planning firm, at least in the Midwest for sure. In Minnesota, we've kept a commitment to, keep our team diverse. I would say that we're all Black. We're all Black and brown for sure. But coming from different perspectives, different ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. So I think that's the first legacy, is that creating that place where Black planners can thrive. I would say also, I think there's going to be, it's already begun, but by the time that me and D'Angelo's, step away from NEOO and pass it on, to the next generation of leaders, we would have, what I would say, dramatically impacted the, wealth building amongst many families. A lot of the entrepreneurs that we're working with, these are Black families who have saved up, who have worked extremely hard, to start that business, buy that first building, and are now looking to, leverage what they've created in order to build wealth for, their families. My hopes is that by the time that, in the next, I don't want to put a number to it, but my hopes is that, by the time that me and D'Angelo's kind of step away, we would have, I would say, be in the billions as far as the financial impact of the, at least in the billions in the amount of dollars that Black families have created.
Got it. Listen, we're out of time. Good conversation. I want to have more with you and your team. I'm Al McFarlane. Thanks to my guest, Denetrick Powers of NEOO. And we're talking about wealth building in our community. It's an important and timely conversation. And I tell you, this team is a team that will deliver. Listen, join us again for the next show. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you.
Thank you.